Good morning, gorgeous souls. Hoping you are having a great start to your week. I am at the most beautiful spot currently. Been camping and about to connect with my friend Mel, who I'm about to pick up with, and head off to the Sunshine Coast early tomorrow morning to complete our 50k coast trek. However, I really wanted to jump in here and just share a few things that are really, really important reminders. And I remember how life-changing this was for me when I first learnt about these things, and it's something I've been revisiting myself in the last week or two, and just the profound importance of understanding these pieces of what could possibly or potentially be holding you back or causing you, if you go to move forward in a particular life area or with a particular thing, you may find that this happens. And I want to speak into induced or carried shame. And most people don't like discussing shame. However, it is one of the biggest factors that causes freeze, overwhelm, procrastination, exhaustion, lethargy, apathy in our physical body and in our nervous system. Freeze and shame biologically is the same thing. It's that feeling of wanting to withdraw, wanting to shut down, not wanting to be seen, and feeling so anxious or paralyzed that we find it really, really difficult to move forward. Now, there can be healthy forms of shame and induced or carried shame. And I want to explain the difference, and then I want to explain what a shame attack actually is and how to identify it, and then what to do to move out of it. So healthy shame is a shame that we experience as humans. We are a social, connected, collective group. Therefore, belonging, fitting in is really important, but it shouldn't be at the cost of our authentic self. However, what helps us socialize or understand what is and isn't okay as human beings is that healthy form of shame. Healthy shame feels like embarrassment. It feels like we've been caught doing something wrong, and it generally occurs when somebody has seen us doing something that perhaps we feel goes against our own values or isn't what we would consider morally right. Generally, with a healthy sense of shame, and let's just use picking your nose as an example, if you were to be like doing that in private, that is not something that typically most people would potentially feel shame about, although you could if you were shamed as a child, which would be induced or carried shame. However, if it's just like, I just need to kind of clean up that area before going out, that's a different story. But if somebody, say, caught us picking our nose out in public, and I'm just using this as a very basic example of how this can play out, then we would feel embarrassed. Perhaps we may even feel a little humiliated. But it's something letting us know, hey, maybe that's something, we don't want to do in public. And so it is really understanding. And again, another healthy form of shame might be we were really rude to somebody and we feel awful afterwards, or we feel bad or afterwards, or we feel, guilt and shame can be very similar. Shame, in Brene Brown's definition, shame is I am bad, whereas guilt is I did something bad. So it's the differentiation of how we actually identify with that particular thing. Guilt is more around the behavior and breaking our own values, whereas shame can be a little bit more around our own identity or our own person, if that makes sense. However, it is a healthy thing. If we were to hurt somebody, we may feel a sense of shame or remorse about that afterwards. Now, in terms of induced or carried shame, we can experience induced or carried shame in so many different ways. Whatever we were shamed for as a child, therefore our parents projected that was wrong, that was bad, or we were some way being unacceptable. So if you were ever criticized for perhaps being successful, or for sharing a win, or seemed as boasting, it might be that you experience a shame attack anytime you move forward and you're successful, or you do something really great, or you wish to share that with a friend, and then you feel this overwhelming sense of shame that perhaps that was bad or wrong to do. Another form of induced or carried shame can definitely be around our emotional state. So when we feel intense emotions, if you were ever shamed for a particular emotion such as anger, or just your emotions, if you were anything but, without the, happy smiley face on. If you were shamed for being upset, told to stop sooking, crying, go to your room, any of those things, if you experience shame and shaming for that, then every time you may experience emotions, you may experience a deeper form of shame as well. So this is a really, really important factor to remember and be aware of, because induced or carried shame really has us feel a deep sense of worthlessness. And that's the difference between embarrassment or humiliation, or when it is our own shame. It's kind of like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But there's not like a drop in our self-worth, and there's not a drop in our self-esteem. Whereas when it's induced or carried shame, it's like, I am not enough, I'm a bad person, I don't deserve to live, or I shouldn't be here. Like all of those sorts of feelings. I know there's strong, intense feelings, and if this is intense for you or triggering for you in any way, I do invite you to pause, to come back to this, to take some deep breaths, to titrate if you need to, look around in your environment, reground yourself in the present moment, and then come back to this. It is really important to honour and regulate our nervous system, so that we're not overwhelming ourselves with these things. But induced or carried shame can feel like a shame attack. So if you were ever shamed for, being complimented or told, you had a parent that was perhaps jealous of your successes or how well you did, all of those things will really create this induced or carried shame feeling, and so that shame attack. How to know when you're having a shame attack is your body will go into that freeze nervous system state, meaning you'll drop in energy, you'll feel bad, you'll feel wrong, you'll feel a deep sense of worthlessness, or a deep sense of I'm a really wrong and bad human being. And often when we're speaking our needs or asking for our wants or desires, if we're shamed for that as a child, how dare you want that, or oh, you're being ridiculous, like how, any of those things, that is when a shame attack can occur, when we go to buy something that we want or that we desire, or perhaps invest money in ourselves. All of those things definitely can induce shame attacks. So as I mentioned, that shame attack definitely can feel very much low in energy, lethargy, apathy, feeling what's the point, why even bother, why even try. But even more than that, you'll feel a deep sense of paralysis, and definitely feel like you're moving slowly, or it's hard to get things done. You'll feel like you really need to push and motivate yourself. So what to do about this if you do experience a shame attack? First and foremost, we need to caretake this part of ourselves. We need to be kind to ourselves, loving to ourselves. And I would really encourage you to do parts work. There's so many different ways that we can actually do parts work to bring healing to these parts of ourselves. But typically these parts, it's been projected upon us that that part of ourself is wrong. And so what we need to do is lovingly caretake and bring that part of ourself closer, rather than reject it or make it wrong or push it away further. Oh, I just need to get rid of these emotions. I just need to stop feeling this way. I need to stop feeling so silly, like this is ridiculous. I just need to pull myself together. In that sense, we're actually shaming ourselves again and re-traumatizing ourselves. So instead of that, we need to lovingly, like we would with our child that we love and adore, or best friend, or somebody that we really love and we're present with and we're emotionally attuned with, we need to pay attention to these parts and work with them to really understand what's going on at the deeper level. Why are they feeling that way? What do they need in order to feel safe, to reintegrate with our main personality, but more importantly, to be able to express themselves, particularly if it's emotions, because stored and repressed emotions absolutely can lead to a disease state in the body, because all of that creates pressure in our nervous system. It creates stress, ongoing cumulative stress, and ongoing inflammation, which drives disease as well. So by caretaking these parts, particularly if it is around emotion, we can lovingly start to understand these parts and really start to integrate, as I said, back into the main personality, where over time it's certainly not a quick fix or a magic bullet or any of those things, but over time we restore our ability to be with these parts of ourselves. And for me personally, I was shamed very heavily for all of my emotions. I'm a very emotional person. I have a Cancerian moon and a Cancerian sun sign, so I used to feel a lot of intensity around emotion. And so working with these paths means that I can comfortably feel my emotions now without repressing them, without shutting them down, without making me wrong, or without experiencing a shame attack as well, which is so incredibly important and valuable. As I mentioned, this can really hold us back in so many areas. If you were shamed for being successful, for doing well, for even celebrating those successes or your wants or your desires, you will experience a shame attack anytime you're going after those things or you're trying to push forward and create those things in your life. So healing this part is critically important, particularly if you're wanting to move forward in particular areas. If you're ever shamed for eating food or particular types of food, if you're ever shamed around your body, like all of these things can create that induced or carried shame, which creates those shame attacks when we're thinking about or even feeling those things. I experience the same thing with food. A lot of emotional eating can come back to this induced shame or having a shame attack anytime we feel like we're eating the wrong food or eating bad food or what we would consider bad food. In right, there are no bad foods. It's just what is resourceful and what's fueling my body in a way that really supports me. So this is such an important piece. And then the second part of this is not only the parts work, but also working with the belief systems that were created as a coping strategy in those moments. So this is where you may be highly triggered by others that perhaps do that behavior or that celebrate their successes with ease because you've been polarized to believe that that is bad or wrong. Just using that as an example, or if somebody's highly emotive around you, maybe like, oh my God, they're being ridiculous. Like how, so if you're triggered, if you're judgmental around those things, all judgment towards others is just self-judgment. It's where we're actually experiencing less freedom with ourselves to fully express our whole entire being. Now, there's appropriate and inappropriate ways of doing that, of course. However, when we polarize, we make one end of the stick wrong and we'll tend to operate only in one area. So again, if anger was made wrong, or you were shamed for being angry as a child and you were sent to your room, or you were smacked, or you were punished in some way, shape or form in a shaming manner, not lovingly corrected, of saying your anger is okay and we want to express it in a healthy way or in a way that's not harming others or hurting others, that's a very different conversation to somebody that's like, stop being so angry, go to your room, like all of that, where it's like really shaming. Then we will tend to be way more passive in our life rather than aggressive, and the healthy balance of that is assertive. But we can't get to assertive if we've made anger or aggression wrong. Remember, anger is such a protective energy. Again, I certainly don't want to be aggressive towards people, but being able to access my anger appropriately is very healthy and is really needed in order for self-protection, to be like, oh, I'm angry about this doesn't feel okay for me. And what used to happen is with that anger I would experience shame, which it completely debilitated my ability to be able to protect myself in that moment as well. So working with the belief systems is really important. I use the Byron-Katie process for this. If this has resonated really strongly with you, you're noticing these particular key areas where perhaps you're experiencing these shame attacks and you'd like some help and support, please reach out. We can have a further chat around, complimentary of course, around if and how I may be able to help and support you on what that level of support would look like with that. However, as I mentioned, if you you're fairly keyed up on personal development, or you know how to do parts work, you know how to release those belief systems using the Byron-Katie process or any other process that works for you, then absolutely they are the crucial steps. And then of course taking action in those areas and then seeing how we're showing up. As I mentioned, generally it's a progression over time where it just gets easier and easier and easier to either express our emotion or to feel our healthy anger, acknowledge it, and then know how to manage that or how to work with that effectively and resourcefully, where A, it's a protective energy, and B, can really support you, or you can really celebrate your successes and be around and align yourself with more people that also celebrate your successes as well. That's also a huge indication of what we've shifted internally is now shifting and changing on the external. Otherwise, we will tend to attract people that are jealous or triggered or in some way, shape or form, dislike that success or our celebrating or our sharing, even just like small wins or larger wins in our life as well. So I hope that's been super helpful for you. Wishing you an amazing rest of your day. I'll share with you just one more sweep of my epic view currently. It's absolutely stunning. I'm just loving the sunshine. The water is like so crystal clear as well. You can literally see the fish swimming around. You probably can't in my video, but wishing you all a beautiful rest of your week. Sending you lots of love, and reach out if you'd like some further support in these particular areas. Have a great day.